on the just cause of the Negro if you do have any incidents, if you do have any rioting?
I don't think there will be any rioting. I don't think 100,000 people just assembling is cause for apprehension about a riot. The city of Washington has accommodated much larger crowds, and nobody has talked up in advance the possibility of violence. But of course, if there should be violence, and we've taken every precaution to see that there is not, it might have an effect on the public's attitude toward the civil rights movement.
Now, that is Roy Wilkins responding to a question from one of the white panelists. And you will find, if you watch this thing, and if not, you're going to have to take my word for it, there was a focus on violence. So anyway, I'll leave you to decide what to do with that. But that's 50 years ago yesterday. And we've forgotten about it now. But back in those days, there was an obsession with communism. Communism!
Sir, you state that this was some time ago, but the Un-American Activities Committee of the House has issued a very recent report showing that as late as March 14, 1962, the same Bayard Rustin spoke at a meeting for the Medical Aid to Cuba Committee, which was organized ostensibly for the purpose of raising money to send supplies to Castro's Cuba. That was only a year ago. Do you still stand by your statement that he has no connection with any of these people?
Yes, as far as I know, and I think I can be safe in saying that I'm absolutely convinced that Mr. Rustin has no connection with any communist organization, and he has no views that are in line with the Communist Party. Now, I cannot speak on that particular issue because I'm not familiar with it, but I'm talking now in terms of his general views that I have heard him discuss publicly and that I have discussed with him. I think Mr. Rustin is as committed to American democracy and as committed to the ideals of democracy as anyone at this time.
Now that, of course, the voice of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. responding to one of the white panelists on that Meet the Press 50 years ago yesterday, and please go watch this thing. If you want a civics class, if you are listening to the sound of my voice because you like civics and you like politics, watch this thing. This will be one of the most interesting half hours of your life, and I'm not overstating that. Now, you got to understand the temper of the times. There was the white America was freaking out in fear over militant communist Negroes were going to take over and invade. And there was white flight depopulating the neighborhoods. And one of the reasons Detroit ended up the way Detroit ended up was because of what was happening then, which is why I'm giving you our words of the week: perspective, perseverance, and patience. You've got to understand, only on a TV show do problems get created, laughed about, and solved in 30 or 60 minutes. It's taken 50 years to get from there to here. And I've got to tell you, I'm not the first one to coin this phrase, but, everything has changed and nothing has changed. Everything has changed and nothing has changed. In many ways, nothing has changed. We still have income inequality. We still got dilapidated housing. We still got all kinds of racial segregation. We still have the Trayvon Martin situation. We've got a lot of problems happening, but we've made a tremendous amount of progress in 50 years. Roy Wilkins, incidentally, the head of the NAACP, during that interview in 1963, said, Congress has not passed any civil rights legislation in 82 years. Now, that was 1963. Hadn't passed any legislation since the 1870s, if my math is right. Since the 1870s, since Reconstruction, since the end of the bleeping Civil War. Now, you talk about patience, perspective, and perseverance. I mean, come on. We're talking about a long haul. And we're talking about changing some very deeply ingrained views. Look at our gay brothers and sisters, right? I mean, look at what we've had to witness to get simple marriage equality for everybody. I mean, there were Stonewall riots in New York City, 1969. The police were beating the living daylights out of gays in bars in San Francisco, where everybody thinks, oh, San Francisco. It wasn't always that way. I hope you've seen the movie Milk. I hope you know the story of Harvey Milk. If you know the Stonewall riots in New York, there were police riots where the police were rioting, beating up our gay brothers and sisters, especially our gay brothers. I mean, it takes a lot of work and time. It takes perspective, perseverance, and patience. Now, Norm at normandgoldman.com for your emails. I've got senior legal analyst time for you, by the way. A present-day senior legal analyst time. A Supreme Court justice, one of the Democrats on the United States Supreme Court, gave a very interesting interview to the New York Times. Her name, Ruth Bader Ginsburg. She said very interesting things. That means it's senior legal analyst time at 4:06 Pacific, 5:06 Mountain, 6:06 Central, and 7:06 in the East.